We believe that healing and awakening are not reserved for the few, but are part of the human journey itself. And we believe that community matters, that there is something powerful about gathering together in sincerity, vulnerability, curiosity, and care. One of the things we return to often here is the importance of relationships, and in particular, the most important relationship of all, the one that you have with your own self. How we speak to ourselves, how we hold ourselves in moments of struggle, how we respond to our own fears, shame, frustration, and imperfection. All of these things matter deeply. They shape the way we move through the world. They shape the way we relate to one another. And for many of us, learning to be kinder, steadier, and more truthful with ourselves is some of the deepest work we will ever engage with. Which brings us to today's talk. This morning, we are joined by Korth, who will be sharing a reflection on his journey of negotiating a truce with the grumpy voice that used to occupy his head and learning how to become a trusted friend to himself. Now, that phrase alone is wonderful because I suspect many of us know something about that grumpy voice, the inner critic, that running commentary of doubt, impatience, judgment, or complaint. Sometimes it sounds harsh. Sometimes it sounds clever. Sometimes it's trying to protect us, or sometimes it's just downright exhausted. But for many of us, it can feel like we are carrying around an inner companion who is not always especially easy to deal with. My wife calls this the roommate. And yet, what Craig points to is not a war against that voice, but a truce. Not self-rejection, but a new relationship. Not the fantasy of becoming perfect, but the very real, very human practice of becoming a little more gentle, a little more honest, and a little more trustworthy in our own company. Now, Craig, as you will soon find out from experience, is a longtime bluegrass musician. He's a former firefighter, and as I'm sure you'll soon sense, he is a deeply curious and loving soul. Life brought him through challenges that forced him to rethink his relationship with himself, and through that process, he found his way into a deeper practice of self-acceptance, forgiveness, and living more fully in the present moment. There's something especially compelling about wisdom that has been lived rather than merely studied. Craig's path has clearly been shaped not only by reflection, but by experience, by meeting difficulty, listening inwardly, and choosing again and again to move toward greater compassion and honesty. His story invites us into a question that is more simple and yet profound. What would it mean to become someone we ourselves can trust? What would it mean to stop abandoning ourselves internally and instead become a steady friend to the life we are living? Now, along the way, Craig has remained grounded in the beautiful, ordinary things as well. He loves to laugh. He loves meaningful conversation. And I'm told he loves a good pot roast, which may be one of the more underrated spiritual practices available to us today. Unless, of course, you're a vegetarian, in which case that is not a practice for you. So today, as we listen, perhaps each of us can listen not only to Craig's story, but also to our own. Where is the grumpy voice within us? What is it trying to do? And what might become possible if we approached that inner landscape not with force, but with patience, courage, and kindness? With that, I will welcome Craig Korth to the pulpit.
Okay, before I begin, I'd like to do something and take a moment to set. I used to be in a men's group, and we used to do this before any of the men in the group would share something. So what I'd like you to do is put your feet on the floor, put your hands in your lap, and close your eyes, or if you feel comfortable, just soften your gaze, and let's take 3 breaths together. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth. In through your nose. Slowly out through your mouth. One more, in through your nose. Out through your mouth. Okay, let's come to this present moment. All right. Um, when I first thought about doing a talk like this, I wondered what to speak about. And today I thought I'd speak about something that's really deep with me. I realized that one of the most impactful things that happened to me in my life came from that grumpy voice in my head that I could not get to stop. And for most of my life, it was a destructive voice that was in my head, ruling the roost, pushing me around. It was so hard on me, it led me to developing something called focal dystonia, which completely upended my life. It's a neurological condition where your brain says, you're doing this thing that you've been doing forever. For me, it was playing music, playing the banjo guitar, which I started when I was 12 in 1974, played for 45 years. One day, my brain said, you know, Craig, you're not enjoying this. I'm going to stop you doing this. You can do anything else you want. You just cannot play the guitar and banjo again. I couldn't even get a diagnosis. And I watched someone on YouTube. They took their violin, they put it on their shoulder, they took their bow, they touched it to the strings. The minute that it touched the strings, their arm went like this. The brain said, nope, you're not playing the violin. I watched a woman walk to a piano, and as soon as she got about a foot away, her hands curled up like this. And as she backed away, she went like this. And her brain just completely stopped her from playing. Like it was just no more of that. And it can happen with basketball players when they go to shoot a hoop, their knees will buckle. Golfers get it. It's called the yips. They go to putt and they buckle and they can't putt because those are the moments of high stress. And so for me, when I went to play the banjo, I rest my two fingers down and I use these three fingers to play. My fingers curl up into my palm and I can't play. And when I play the guitar, I use a pick and my thumb constantly is trying to push the pick away from the strings and my hand is trying to curl away from the strings to stop me from doing it. Very frustrating. But one day I was in a band. We were on tour, couldn't play the banjo anymore. I switched to the guitar and another instrumentalist could play the banjo. So we played like that for a while. Then all of a sudden on my last gig at the Cowichan Bluegrass Festival, at the end of our last set, I could not even get the pick to touch the strings and I was done. And I was devastated because, for me, my whole world came crashing down because my identity was as a musician. I was an awkward kid in grade 6 when I came home from school and my mom was looking for a vacuum cleaner repair place in the Yellow Pages and came on the House of Banjo. And she said, Craig, do you want to learn how to play the banjo? And I'm like, okay. I didn't even really know what a banjo was. So we went to the House of Banjo, and I remember Don Evoy was the guy there, and he's like, Craig, what do you want to learn, the 4-string or the 5-string banjo? I'm like, there's two kinds of banjos? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, okay, I'll play the 4-string for you. And that's what used to be played in Dixieland music and jazz. And it was like, it sounded like a machine gun. And I was 12, and it was like, I want to play that. And then he played the 5-string banjo and it was and I'm like, oh, that sounds beautiful. I want to play that. So we rented me a banjo. It was fall of 1974. And it was $10 a month for a plastic banjo. Took my first lesson. I came home and when I started to play it, I felt like a set of Christmas tree lights that had been plugged in. I was so excited. And I went to bed that night with it on my stomach and fell asleep and, woke up in the morning with my face on the neck. And that was it. I fell in love. And I started to play guitar at the same time. And so I had really worked hard at it. By the time I was 14, I was teaching at the music store that I was taking lessons at and started gigging. I did my first gig when I was 14 at the Klondike Days in Edmonton for 10 days. It was fantastic. So I was a heavy tourer. I toured all over the world. I was the first call banjo player in Canada. Like if you wanted me to play, I played on commercials for Esso, for McDonald's, for the McRib, and I play on albums, a dozen albums a year for other people. I won a Juno, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And I moved around for a while and I whined. I'm a world-class whiner when I need to whine. And whine and complain, I used to be able to play the guitar and the banjo and I can't anymore. And I'd see my daughters with their eyes open, and my wife and I'm like, okay, and my friends, and I realized nobody's going to want to be around me if I keep this up. And I couldn't live in the past. I couldn't live in the past where I could play. And I needed to be in the present. And so my wife one day, we were sitting in the kitchen and she looked at me and she said, Craig, you're kind of hard to be around. I'm like, why? And she said, because you don't love yourself. I'm like, love myself? I don't even like myself. And she said, well, there you go. And I started to think about, how am I going to live in the present, live in this moment and not live in the past? Because the voice in my head kept saying to me, Craig, you used to be a good musician. Now look at you. You're nothing. And I'm starting to think, is that really true? Am I not a father? Am I not a husband? Am I not a friend? Am I not was a firefighter, a machinist? Don't I like to hear people tell fart jokes? Like, that's me. I like it. And so the voice though in my head kept rocketing me into the past, reminding me of the dumb things I'd ever said, the dumbest things or the dumbest things I'd ever done. And finally, I was listening to this voice go, remember when you said that to Roland Gottsman in grade 3? And finally I just said, don't talk to my friend like that. And that's where I began to stand up to that voice in my head. And I realized I was standing up to the bully in my head, and that bully was me. I was the bully. And I was bullied when I was young. And I started to realize how much I hated being bullied and how much I needed to change that. And what was holding me to the past was became so evident. It was grudges. I had grudges with people. If anyone ever did anything to me, I would hold this grudge. And I'm like, where did that come from? And it came from my loving mother, Pat, who was a lot of fun. She taught me the dirty words to the Beverly Hillbillies and everything when I was playing the banjo. But my mother loved a grudge. She would take that grudge out, and it was like a little pet, and she would feed it and exercises, and it would grow, and she would never let go of it. And I realized I needed to let go of my grudges. My grudges were holding me to the past like a rusty old anchor chain. And so what I did was I started to explore, how do I let go of my grudges? I have to forgive people. Oh, okay. So I had to forgive people, and I did not know how to do it. Finally, something happened where I was exposed to a meditation, a loving kindness meditation. And how many people here have heard of a loving kindness meditation? Okay, we're going to do one today. Okay, so let's put our feet on the ground again. Let's put our hands in our lap, and let's get centered. We'll take one breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, so what I want you to do is picture you sitting in front of yourself, and you see yourself sitting across, and you're smiling sweetly to each other, and you're sending as much love as you can to yourself. And you can feel it like Jim Carrey said when he imagines doing this, he imagines a tube coming from his heart to the heart of the person sitting across him, and this beautiful warm yellow light is exchanging between the two of you. So imagine that and say this: may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be loved. And see yourself smiling back, send love to yourself. Say it again: may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be loved. Now, imagine sitting across from you is someone you dearly, dearly love, somebody you can't wait to be in the same room with. And they're sitting and you're staring at each other, and there's this beautiful, warm yellow light going between the two of you from heart to heart. And you say, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be loved. And just imagine all the love you have for this person just going to them, and it's coming back to you. May you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be loved. And now imagine somebody that you barely know. Maybe you go to a coffee shop every day and you buy a coffee from someone and you just kind of smile to each other. You know them, but you don't know anything about them. So put them in that chair in front of you. Imagine your heart opening up and a warm, beautiful golden light going between the two of your hearts. You're staring at them, they're staring at you, you're smiling sweetly at each other, and say, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be loved. And just look at that person's face glowing. Your face is glowing. You're smiling to each other. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. Now, the last person you're going to sit is somebody who is driving you crazy, somebody you really can't stand right now, or you're having difficulty with, and you want to do unthinkable things to them. What you want to do is have them sit in the chair across from you, open your heart, send a beam of golden warm light to them. It's exchanging between the two of you. Send them all the love you can, even if it's only a thimbleful, and say to them as sweetly as you can, may you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. Once more, with all you can muster, even if it's like a little fingernail full. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. Now imagine the four of you, yourself, someone you love, someone you barely know, someone you're having difficulty with, are sitting in a circle and you're looking down from above. And their hearts and your heart are all connected with this beautiful golden light, and say to them, may we be healthy. May we be happy. May we be peaceful. May we be loved. Say it once more with all the love you can. May we be healthy. May we be happy. May we be peaceful. May we be loved. And we're done with that. You can open your eyes. What this does is it makes you realize that if you can have love for someone that you really love and wish them the best that you can wish, somebody that you barely know, someone you don't even like, you can wish that all for yourself. And I started to do that, and I realized I had a lot of forgiving to do. First of all, I had to forgive my parents. I had to forgive my parents for anything, absolutely anything they ever did to me. One of the things they did do to me that was really great, when I was 14, my parents looked around and they said, Craig, we're in a bluegrass desert here in Edmonton. Like, there was no bluegrass music there. And they said, we need to drive to Nashville right after you finish school. And I got my learner's permit. We hopped in our truck, and we had a 20-foot travel trailer. And my dad was a truck driver. And he said, Craig, you're going to learn to drive with the trailer. So we drove to Nashville. And I learned how to back a trailer into the camping stalls and everything. Got to Nashville. We stayed in Goodlettsville, which is a suburb of Nashville. And there was another banjo player beside us. He was 16, really great. My mom was writing out music that he had brought with him so that I could learn. And they were related to Dolly Parton. And we were sitting around the campfire at their camp one night, and there's this, I don't know, it was a Cadillac, it was some big car. This is 1976. She was on Porter Wagoner, so she wasn't that famous yet. But she pulled up and she sat around the fire with us for a whole evening. And it was fantastic. She's so smart and funny and lovely. I've got a huge crush on Dolly Parton. Anyway, it was fantastic. So then we would go around to different jam sessions, and some famous bluegrass musicians would show up. One of them was Sonny Osborne from the Osborne Brothers, who were on the Grand Ole Opry. And I was playing, and he came to my parents and said, you know, your son is actually really talented. You should consider letting him, or moving to Nashville. And, you know, we could find him a place to live and go to school here, and we could find people to help him, teach him and everything. And my parents said, oh, thanks very much. And on the way home, they said, Craig, don't do that. Because if you move to Nashville, you're going to be a little fish in a little pond. Stay in Edmonton. You'll be a big fish in a little pond. And now when I think back to it, I'm like, why couldn't I be a big fish in a big pond? Or at least try. And the other thing that they did that I needed to forgive them for was when I finished high school. I mean, I just kept learning and playing, and I was playing the guitar and really going for it. And I wanted to go to music school. And my parents said, no, you can't go to music school. You have to get a trade. I'm like, get a trade? Why would I want to do that? And they said, you know, my dad was a welder and a tinsmith and a pipe fitter, and my mom was a nurse. And they're like, no, you need backup. You need a backup. So I took machine shop in high school. And so I went and I became a machinist. And I did that for 6 years. And I liked it a lot. But it wasn't what I really wanted to do. I wanted to play music, and I'm like, I got to find a job where they pay me to practice. I'm like, that's going to be hard to do. And one day I'm sitting at the machine shop, and I'm reading the paper at lunch, and it said, fire department hires for the first time in 5 years. It was 1986. There was a really bad recession. 1981, the fire department usually hired 125 guys a year. There was no money. So they hadn't hired anyone for 5 years. So I went to my dad's best friend, Wilf Grindy, and I said, Mr. Grindy, what's it like to be a firefighter? He's like, oh, Craig, it's fantastic. You work 2 day shifts, 10-hour days from 8 till 6, and then 2 night shifts from 6 till 8. And I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, in the morning you come there, you have coffee for an hour with the crew that's getting off, tell some jokes, and then clean up the fire hall, do an inventory on the trucks, and then you do some training. And the rest of the day, you get to do whatever you want. I said, could I practice the banjo and guitar? He goes, oh, yeah, you could do that forever. And I'm like, and then he said, you get work 2 days, 2 nights, 2 days off. 2 days, 2 nights, and 6 days off. I'm like, every 10 days you get 6 days off. I'm like, holy crap, I want that job. And so I went and I applied for it. I got my high school English teacher to actually write my resume. I was 24 for me. He wrote my resume for me. I had it professionally typed. This was way before, you could do anything at home. Well, you could, but I didn't know how to do it. I knew how to be a machinist. But what happened was I got it professionally typed, put it in, and I got a note back about 5 days later that said, in the mail, said, okay, you can come and apply for the job. So they said, show up at the university. I went into this huge hall and there were like hundreds and hundreds of people writing an aptitude test. 2,500 people applied for the job and 2,500 people wrote an aptitude test. And I'm like, my friends are like, you never get that job, Craig. Why would you even apply? Turns out only 200 people passed. And out of the 200 people, you had to pass a physical fitness test and you had to be in the top 65. So I passed that. And then from there, they made you go up a ladder to the top of this really tall building in this tiny little skinny ladder. If you're afraid of heights, you're gone. You had to do all these really hard tests. They were stress tests. The last one was you had to put on a mask that was painted black, go through this awful maze that they had set up, and they were burning fish oil inside. So you couldn't take your mask off. It wouldn't kill you, but it was horrible. And then there's a tunnel. I'm going through the tunnel, and my air tank on the back is like hitting the tunnel. The tunnel's too small. I can't get out. But so I'm like, okay, finally. What I did was I took my air pack off and I shoved it through the tunnel. I got to the end and I forgot I have to hang on to it. And it fell down and it pulled my mask off. And I'm like, I finally get my mask on. I get out and I guess they liked me because I went and I had to meet with 6 fire chiefs and they're asking me, why do you want to do this job? And part of it was I like to help people. You cannot do that job if you don't want to help people because it's a really frightening job. And they liked me and they said, how are you looking blue? And I said, pretty good. They said, okay, you got the job. I couldn't believe it. And so I became a firefighter. I was a full-time firefighter for 14 years. It was really great. I did get a lot better as a firefighter or as a musician. What happened though was I practiced so much that I got tennis elbow in my left arm from playing the guitar. So for 6 months I couldn't play. I had to play the banjo, but I really went for it. But I realized this whole time while I was going for it, I was just constantly pushing to improve and improve and improve. And now when I reflect back, it's because I never felt like I was good enough. I never felt good enough. It was really such a difficult thing. This voice in my head kept saying, Craig, you suck. Come on, get better, get better. And finally, what happened well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. I want to tell you about an experience I had, though, going along. Okay, so I joined a men's group. I quit firefighting after 14 years, got severe PTSD, complex PTSD. A sensitive musical type like me should not be a firefighter. It's too hard. I told my wife when I met her that I felt like a pink rose that stuck out at a wrestling match. There was 1,200 firefighters on the fire department and a lot of rough guys. Really rough guys. And they would say in the morning, let's get a 4-alarm fire. And I'd be like, let's not, and get paid the same. And, and so anyway, I quit being a firefighter and I just played music. And I was also making guitars. I really wanted to make guitars for a long time. I went down in 1992 and made a guitar with a really wonderful maker named Bob Benedetto. And I was in my friend's music store, and he was he put out the Guitar Player magazine. In the back it said, Bob Benedetto, maker of fine archtops. And I wanted to make specifically archtop guitars that jazz players use to play jazz. They're made like violins. They're carved and everything. They're not flat. And so I phoned him. I ran home and I said, I read about your course. And he said, yeah, you have to send me $200 deposit. It's $1,000 and you get to take the guitar home with you. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds fantastic. And he said, yeah, but just send me a $200 deposit. So I ran out of my house, went to the bank, got a $200 American money order and FedEx it overnight. And he phoned me and he said, holy crap, Craig, you really must want to do this. I said, you can't believe how much I want to do it. He said, call me in 2 weeks and we'll make a date. So I called him in 2 weeks and he said there were 250 people on a waiting list to do it. And he wasn't going to do it with anyone unless they were one of the first 7 people that sent the deposit. So I did it. So I came back, set up a shop, quit being a firefighter, making guitars. I could not finish them. I got them to 80% and then I wouldn't finish them. But people are like, Craig, is my guitar getting close to being ready? And the voice in my head said, Craig, don't finish it because then it'll show how much you suck and how bad you are at this. And so it has been a long, road down that, trying to stop that voice in my head. And then one day I remember I was reaching for a glass of water. I knocked it over and the voice in my head said, oh, you're such an idiot. And I'm like, wait a minute. I am not an idiot. And I stopped and I said, that's enough of this. And what I realized, I needed to speak to myself like a cherished 5-year-old that I had. And say, okay, Craig, let's just clean that up. Get another glass of water and let's just move on. So I started doing that. And that things started to change. I started to feel better. I joined a men's group when we moved here to Victoria. We met every Tuesday night for 3 hours. There's 15 men in the group. They're all there to be better men, better husbands, better friends, just better people. And we read this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And No More Mr. Nice Guy doesn't mean you can start being a jerk. It means stop being a people pleaser. Nice guys come from a very predictable background. An absent father who's either emotionally absent or is physically absent. And my dad was a truck driver. He put up buildings in the far north, around pump stations. He was always gone. And emotionally, he was not there either. And my mom was pretty volatile, a lot of fun, but volatile. And my sister and my mom just clashed like crazy and they would scream at each other. And I would hide behind the couch and cry because it was so upsetting. And I realized if I wanted my mom not to scream at me like she screamed at my sister, I needed to be a very nice boy. So my sister I talked to her on the way here today. I talked to her almost every day. My sister told me a few years ago, she goes, I hated you. And I'm like, why? She said, because you were the golden boy. Everybody loved Craig. And it's like, yeah, well, everyone loved me because I worked so hard at trying to control that narrative about how people felt about me. It wasn't real. I was lying. I wasn't presenting my real self. I was presenting what I thought people wanted to see. But inside, I was often seething. It was never safe for me to get angry if somebody at work did something awful to me or something happened. I would never stand up for myself. And after reading No More Mr. Nice Guy, I cried a bunch of times as I was reading it because I just realized how badly my life went compared to what it could have happened if I was just honest with myself. I started learning how to set boundaries through the men's group, and I started really being more honest and standing up for myself. And then I found this group of people here, which I love. I love coming to this center of love, which I call the Church of Love because it feels very churchy to me in a very positive way. But I love it here. And I love all the people that I met here. I just think it's a wonderful thing. Okay, so basically what happened is I finally made a truce with the voice in my head. And I'll tell you one quick last story that, if an old friend of mine, and I had a couple of old friends where it just kind of the relationship petered out. But in my head, every day for years, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, it petered out because you said this and you did that. I'd say about my friend. And then I'd say, well, it also petered out because I did this and I did this. And finally, I stopped. When that friend would come up, I would right away, before I said something negative to myself, I'd imagine, why was I friends with this person in the first place? I was friends because we laughed like crazy. So when they would come up, I would imagine us with our arms around each other, like doubled over in laughter, which happened a lot. And then a little while later, like, so it wasn't every day. Then it was like every 3 days or every 4 days. And then I changed a little bit when they would come. Instead of trying to imagine something that we did together that was so much fun, I imagined just giving them a little kiss on the cheek, giving them a hug, a little pat on the bum, and sending them on their way. And then all of a sudden, they don't come up anymore. I made peace with them and made peace with myself about it. So, so what I started to really feel after coming here, joining the men's group, working through all of this, also, I did one other thing that was incredibly impactful, and that was one of the people in the men's group is an osteopath. And he said, Craig, have you tried psychedelic assisted therapy? And I'm like, no, I would never do that. You'll go crazy. And he's like, oh, watch that series by Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind on Netflix. So I did. I read a book, his book. I watched a bunch of Netflix, not Netflix, but TED Talks, and made peace with the fact that this is actually something that could be very impactful. And it was. So I did a psychedelic assisted journey, met my soul, and this is what happened. I met my soul, and I asked my soul, I said, why did I lose the ability to play the banjo and guitar? They both popped out of me. They looked like men's room sign. They're just standing there like this, no face. And they said to me, Craig, we did everything you ever wanted us to do. You wanted to play fast, we played fast. You wanted to learn a million songs, we learned a million songs, and you never appreciated us. I'm like, holy smokes, you're right. I didn't. And I knew what that meant. What that meant was I started here and I felt like I needed to go here. Whoops. Oh, there. Fire? Is there a fire? I would have freaked out before, but not anymore. So not my fire. I didn't start it. Anyway, what happened was that when the banjo and guitar said that I didn't appreciate them, I realized what they meant. Okay, so when I started playing the banjo, I was here. My goal was here. I kept working and getting closer to my goal. But the more I learned, the more I realized my goal was actually here. And then I'd go like this, and my goal was here. If I heard somebody play something that I didn't know, I'd think to myself, oh my God, I don't know anything. It's like, yeah, well, Craig, you can't learn everything. You don't know it. You'll never know everything. I never looked back at how far I'd come. I only looked at how far I had to go. And I felt really sorry for them. And we had this beautiful, loving moment, and I made peace with all the parts of my soul. And this was only 3 years ago. And that was a huge thing that really helped me as well. So I guess the last part of this is that I had a lot of help from a lot of people. A woman named Ruth Childs in Spain. I spent a year with her last year, helping me doing something called brain spotting, healing a lot of my past. She's helped many musicians and golfers and famous athletes. She's a good friend. I helped her release her next book, and I had help from all of her. I hired a coach, a men's coach. That's just fantastic. What is his name? It's Leo. Good Lord. Anyway, I worked through the self-esteem workbook with my friend who is a Gottman therapist. She said, Craig, at the beginning of this journey, she said, you need to work through the self-esteem workbook. And I give it to all my patients. I need to work through it too. Do you want to work through it with me? So once a week, we would do a chapter and meet on Friday and talk through it. And I opened this up the other day and I looked at it. And at the beginning of it, there's a self-esteem checkup. And what they ask you a bunch of questions and you rate from 0 to 10. 0 is I totally disbelieve this statement. 10 is I totally believe this statement. So here are some of the statements. I am a worthwhile person. I am as valuable a person as everyone else. I am happy to be me. When I look into my eyes in a mirror, I have a pleasant feeling. And I gave all of those a solid 2. And honest to God, I did. I found the sheet where I wrote down all those. Now, when I look at that, I am a worthwhile person. That's a 10. When I am as valuable person as everyone else, that's a 10. I'm happy to be me. That's somewhere between 8 and 10, depending on what's going on. When I look into my eyes in the mirror, I have a pleasant feeling. I do, as long as I don't do this and notice the crow's feet. But I'll tell you, I flipped the script on that. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of soul searching, some weird times, but I am now, I couldn't have even given this talk before this happened. So now I realize focal dystonia, I used to think it was there to sabotage me, that it was just taking me down. But what's focal dystonia really was the safety valve that blew before I had a nervous breakdown. And it stopped me in my tracks, set me on a new path, a path of healing. And now after all this work, I can play the guitar again. And I also look at focal dystonia as a very trusted, helpful friend, that it was there to save me. It wasn't there to do me in. So I'm grateful. I have a super solid gratitude practice. I go for a walk every morning. I listen to gratitude affirmations. At night before I go to sleep, I say 3 things I'm grateful about the day for me that happened to me, or things I'm grateful for. And I can finish guitars now. And I brought the first guitar I made along. And I would like, okay, let me read this last thing before we sing. For most of my life, I believed the voice in my head that told me I wasn't enough. When I finally stopped speaking to myself that way and became a friend to myself instead, peace started to appear. I didn't even know what peace was. My goal now is not to be happy. My goal is to be peaceful. And I hope that you discover that becoming a friend to yourself might be one of the most important friendships you'll ever make. If you take anything away from this today, that's what I'd like you to take. So I brought my guitar that I finished. I mean, I've finished a bunch since, but this guitar was the very first one. It took me forever to finish because I just couldn't face it. And I would love if you would sing a song with me. I play bluegrass music mostly. I've played it for 51 years. I love it. One of my favorite is gospel music. Even though I was raised as an atheist, I saw God in one of my journeys, and God is everything, everyone. That's what I believe. And I just love bluegrass music or gospel music because people are so fired up when they write it. It's so, I don't know, I just find it beautiful. And this song is called Your Church and Mine. And I think it's like now with what's going on in our world, although it's, you know, think about the Vietnam War and all the stuff I've been through since I was a kid, there's always something going on. But this is about us coming together no matter what church we come to. And I think about this as a church and this is a different church. But it's still a church where we all gather together. So if you could sing Your Church and Mine with me, I would love it. Does anyone want to sing? Who wants to sing?
Do it.
Who wants to sing? Okay. Okay. So this is a guitar that I made, and it's what jazz players like to play. And you can see it's all arched and everything. It actually starts out as 1-inch thick piece of wood, and all those arches are carved into the top and back. And this was the first one I finished, and I actually hung it off my deck. I lived on a hill, and I was spraying the guitar on the deck, and there were bugs sticking to it and everything, but I sanded them up. Okay. I just have to put my strap on. Okay, I'm going to sing the melody for you, and then we're going to sing it together. Da 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 You go to your church and I'll go to mine, but let's walk along together. Our fathers built them side by side, but let's walk along together. The road is rough, the way is long, we'll help each other over. You go to your church and I'll go to mine, let's walk along together. Okay, let's sing the next verse together.